Am I losing my mind? You've asked yourself this 3 times this week, forgot where you parked, called your daughter by the wrong name, stood in the store, list in hand, unable to remember what you came for. Doctors say it's normal aging, but normal doesn't stop the fear. Ibn Arabi said, rejoice. Not because memory doesn't matter, because what's happening to you right now is sacred dismantling. He called it Fana al-Dhikr, the dissolution of remembering, not disease, not decline. A spiritual opening that only arrives when the mind's fortress begins to crack. Allah says in Surah Al-Kahf, Ayah 24, and remember your Lord when you forget. Most people read this as instruction. Ibn Arabi saw it as prophecy. You cannot truly remember Allah until you forget yourself. Look at what you're actually forgetting. You forgot your son's birthday last week, but you remember, with perfect clarity, the day a stranger smiled at you in 1975, a Tuesday morning, the quality of light, how it felt like grace. You can't recall what you ate for dinner yesterday, but your grandmother's hands, you can feel their texture right now, the weight, the warmth, the way they folded prayer beads. This isn't random deterioration, it's surgical removal. Your memory is keeping what the soul needs, deleting what the ego accumulated. But what Ibn Arabi discovered next will explain why this is happening now, to you. At this exact age, Ibn Arabi watched it happen to his teacher first, Abu Madyan, one of the greatest Sufi masters of the 12th century, sharp as a blade until his 70th year, could recite entire books from memory, thousands of hadiths, poetry, Quranic commentary. Then the forgetting began. He'd stop mid-sentence, look around like he'd woken from a dream. Students would gently remind him where he was, what he was teaching. He'd nod, continue, then drift again. Most students felt pity, some left, seeking teachers whose minds were still intact. But Ibn Arabi stayed, because he noticed something. Every time Abu Madyan forgot where he was, his face changed. The lines softened, his eyes became still, like he was seeing through the walls into something vast. And his words, when they came, were different, fewer, heavier, sentences that landed in your chest and stayed there for days. One afternoon, Abu Madyan sat in the courtyard. Silent for an hour, students whispered, "He's lost again." Ibn Arabi approached, sat beside him, asked quietly, "Master, do you know where you are?" Abu Madyan turned, looked at him with absolute clarity, and smiled. "I finally don't, and I finally am." Ibn Arabi didn't understand, not then. He asked, "What do you mean?" Abu Madyan spoke slowly, like each word cost him something. "For 70 years I remembered who I was, my name, my lineage, my students, my books. That memory was a room, and I lived in that room thinking it was the world." He paused, touched his chest. "Now the walls are dissolving, and I see the room was always inside something infinite. I'm not losing my place. I'm discovering I never had one. I'm not disappearing. I'm appearing." 3 months later, Abu Madyan died. His last words were, finally, no one to remember. Ibn Arabi carried those words for 30 years, memorized them, studied them, taught them. Then, at 63, his own memory began to dissolve, and he finally understood what his teacher had seen. Ibn Arabi realized memory isn't one thing, it's 3 rooms. Most people live in the first room their entire lives, never knowing the other 2 exist. The first room, memory of the false self. This room is full, crowded, every wall covered with mirrors reflecting back who you think you are. Your name, your accomplishments, who loved you, who betrayed you, what you succeeded at, what you failed. This room has a door that locks from the inside, and you've been locked in for 70 years. Right now that door is opening, not because you want it to, because the lock is rusting away, and you're terrified, because you think this room is you. But Ibn Arabi said, this room was always a waiting area. You were never meant to stay. The second room, memory of what actually happened. You walk through the opening door. This room is quieter, emptier. The mirrors are gone. Here you don't remember your daughter's name, but you remember her essence the moment she was born. Not the date, not the hospital, the frequency of her soul when she first looked at you. You don't remember what your wife said yesterday, but you remember the morning 30 years ago when light came through the kitchen window and landed on her face and time stopped. You don't remember the sermon from last Friday, but you remember prostrating in an empty mosque 40 years ago and feeling for 3 seconds that you were not alone in the universe. This room doesn't store facts, it stores truth, not what happened according to the calendar, what happened according to the heart. This is where you are now, between rooms, the first door opening, the second room revealing itself. But there's a third room, and Ibn Arabi only found it when the second room's walls began dissolving too. The third room, the memory before you were born. Allah says in Surah Al-Araf, Ayah 172, and remember when your Lord brought forth from the children of Adam, from their backs, their descendants, and made them testify, am I not your Lord? They said, yes, we testify. Ibn Arabi understood, before you had a body, before you had a name, before there was a you to remember things, you testified. You knew Allah directly, not through memory or learning or faith, through being. That original yes is still in you, buried beneath 70 years of accumulated identity, beneath the names and dates and stories. And now, as your surface memory crumbles, that primordial knowing is surfacing. You're not losing memory, you're recovering the memory underneath memory, the one that doesn't need a brain to exist. But here's what's making this harder than it needs to be. Right now, you're fighting. Every time you forget, you scramble. Lists, notes, tricks, routines, mental exercises to keep your mind sharp. You're trying to stay in the first room even though the door is already open. Ibn Arabi watched students do this, clinging to their failing memories like drowning people clutching debris. And he saw what it did to them. The fighting itself creates suffering, not the forgetting, the resistance to forgetting. Every time you panic when you can't remember, you're choosing fear over the opening that fear is revealing. One student came to Ibn Arabi in tears. Master, I forgot my granddaughter's name at her wedding. Everyone saw. I'm humiliated. Ibn Arabi asked, did you forget how much you love her? No, never. Then you remembered the only thing that survives death. The name is temporary. The love is your soul recognizing her soul. That memory is eternal. But how do you stop fighting? How do you cross from fear to peace? Ibn Arabi gave 3 practices. Practice 1, witness the blank. Tonight, you'll forget something. Your coffee cup, what you were about to say, why you walked into a room. When it happens, stop. Don't scramble. Don't apologize. Don't fill the space with words. Stand in that blankness for 5 seconds, just 5. Count them. In that space between forgetting and remembering, something is present that's usually hidden. Ibn Arabi called it Al-Hadra, the presence. The divine isn't in the memory, it's in the space where memory used to be. Most people flood that space immediately with panic, but if you can be still for just 5 seconds, you'll feel it. A vastness, a quiet that isn't empty. Do this once, today, just once. Witness the blank instead of fleeing from it. Practice 2, remember without trying. Tomorrow morning, before you get out of bed, lie still. Ask yourself, what comes? Don't force memory. Don't try to recall yesterday or make plans for today. Just wait. A memory will surface on its own. Maybe childhood, maybe last week, maybe a dream. Whatever comes, Notice, it isn't coming from effort. It's bubbling up from somewhere deeper than will. Write 3 words about its feeling, not facts. Feeling. Warm, yellow, safe. Heavy, salt, dark. Bright, rushing, free. This is your heart's memory teaching you its language, the language of essence, not information. Do this for 7 days. You're training yourself to receive instead of grasp, to let memory come to you instead of chasing it. Practice 3, dhikr in the fog. This is the core, the practice that changes everything. Next time you forget anything, doesn't matter what, say Allah once, quietly, out loud or silent. Not as a prayer for better memory, not asking to remember, just Allah. Ibn Arabi taught, when you forget yourself, space opens for remembrance that isn't personal, remembrance that breathes itself through you. Not, I am remembering Allah, but Allah remembers himself through this form that's forgetting its form. A woman came to Ibn Arabi when his memory was nearly gone. Her father no longer recognized her. She was devastated. He forgets my name, my face. He asks who I am every time I visit. Ibn Arabi asked, does he still say Allah's name? Yes, but he doesn't remember the prayers correctly anymore. He forgets which rak'ah. He repeats himself. Your father hasn't forgotten, Ibn Arabi said. He's remembering the only thing that survives the grave. You're mourning the loss of recognition, but recognition is memory's smallest gift. He's receiving its greatest disappearance into the presence. The woman left angry. She wanted her father back, the father who knew her name. 10 years later, her own memory began to fade. She returned to Ibn Arabi's words and wept, not from grief, from gratitude, because she finally understood what her father had found before her, what Ibn Arabi had found, what she was finding. The death of personal memory is the birth of divine remembrance. Not metaphor, literal. You're not losing your mind to emptiness. You're losing your mind to fullness, to a remembrance so vast your small human memory can't contain it. So it shatters, and the infinite pours through the cracks. This is what life looks like when you stop fighting. You wake up, don't immediately reach for your identity. Don't think, I am 73, I have 4 children, I live at this address. You just wake, light through the window, breath, moving, being happening. The way you existed before you learned you were supposed to be someone specific. You look at your hands, these hands that have held so much, and for a moment you can't remember if they're yours or your mother's, or hands in general. The miracle of hands, any hands, all hands. The disorientation lasts 3 seconds. Then your name comes back, but something loosened, the grip softened. You see your daughter's face, and the name doesn't come immediately. 1 second, 2, and in that space you see her without the label. The soul you recognize the instant she was born, eternal, luminous, not daughter, not even hers, just essence. The name arrives, you say it, but you know now, the name is the smallest part of knowing her. Prayer changes. You forget which rak'ah you're on, used to create panic. Now, you just continue, because the counting was always just form. The prostration, the actual surrender, that's what matters. And sometimes in sajda, with your forehead on the ground, you forget why you're there. Forget what you're praying for. Forget even who's praying. And in that forgetting, prayer becomes real. Not performance, not petition, just dissolution. Food tastes different, simpler. You're not comparing it to 70 years of previous meals. You're tasting what's actually on your tongue right now. This bite, this moment, creation happening in real time. Your grandchildren talk. You lose the thread sometimes, but you're not worried about looking incompetent anymore. You just watch their faces, the light in their eyes, the way their hands move when they're excited. You see them the way Allah sees them. not as stories in time, as presence. People notice something about you, can't name it, but you're different, slower, stiller, like you're listening to something they can't hear. Some avoid you. Your confusion makes them uncomfortable. They see their future in your forgetting, and it terrifies them. Others move closer, speak softer, touch your arm a moment longer. They sense something, don't know what, but they feel it, a peace that makes no sense given what you're losing. You're dying, not biologically, not yet, but the constructed self is in its final dissolution, and what's being born doesn't need memory to exist, doesn't need your brain's filing system, doesn't need proof of its own existence. It exists, not because it remembers existing, because existence is its nature. This is what Ibn Arabi meant by rejoicing. Not that the confusion isn't real, it is. Not that the losses don't hurt, they do, but underneath of the loss, revealed by the loss, is what you've been searching for your entire life. The self that was never born, the awareness that will never die, the presence that was here before your first memory and will be here after your last. You're not disappearing into nothing. You're appearing as everything. Am I losing my mind? Now you know. You're not losing mind. Mind is losing its tyranny over you. There's a difference. For 70 years your mind told you who you are. Every memory was proof. I exist. I matter. I am real. But Ibn Arabi saw through it. Those memories weren't proving your existence. They were constructing a fictional character called you. And now that fiction is being deconstructed. What remains when the story ends isn't nothing. It's what was reading the story all along. The awareness witnessing these words right now. That's what's real. That never forgets, because it was never dependent on memory to exist. Allah says in Surah Taha, Ayah 52, "My Lord never errs nor forgets." Ibn Arabi understood. You are not separate from that consciousness. Your essence participates in the remembrance that holds galaxies in orbit and counts every breath of every creature. When your personal memory fades, you're not falling into darkness. You're falling into the memory that holds all memories. The knowing that remembers every sparrow, every leaf, every human who ever forgot their own name. Ibn Arabi's final teaching was the shortest. A student asked, "Master, what should I do as my memory fails?" He smiled. "Remember that Allah has never forgotten you. That's all. You are held, right now, in an awareness that predates your birth and survives your death. Held in a remembrance that doesn't depend on your brain's ability to recall. The dismantling is sacred. The forgetting is holy. What remains when memory surrenders is what you've always been, beneath the name, beneath the history, beneath the proof. Witnessed, eternal, home. May Allah guide you through the fog into the clarity that needs no name.